Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Global Conference on IPS, National Competitiveness Research 2024. I am Tae-Young Kim, the chair of IPSNC and the MC for today's conference. I'd like to start our conference by thanking our three organizing institutions and hosts and three sponsors who made this conference possible and successful. The 7 institutions are as follows: Assist University, SDG Management School in Switzerland, UNITA in Switzerland, IPSNC, Washington Times in the United States, Gyeongin Broadcasting Company, and University News Network in Korea. Now, I'm going to begin the session of congratulatory remarks. We invited 3 esteemed guests from organizers, sponsors, and academia. They will share some congratulatory remarks with us. Our first speaker is Dr. Nikhil Sis, Executive Director of UNITAR. Please give a warm welcome to him. Due to another official commitment, he is unable to join us live today. Please understand that. However, he has sent a video message which we'll now play for you.
Distinguished colleagues and esteemed partners, I want to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the organizers for hosting this important conference. The partnership between UNITAR and Assist University has been a pillar of our shared mission to enhance global competitiveness and sustainable development. Together, we've forged innovative paths to address today's challenges, and we are proud of what we have achieved. I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to the organizers and contributors to the Global Conference on IPS National Competitiveness Research. Chairman Cho from the Institute of Industrial Policy Studies, Switzerland, President Moon from Assist University, Chairman Kim of the Institute for Policy and Strategy on National Competitiveness, Professor Xiang from Cheung Kong Graduate School of Business, Mr. McDevitt, Chairman of the Washington Times, Professor Huang of the Institute for Policy and Strategy on National Competitiveness, and Mr. Fang, researcher at the Institute for Policy and Strategy on National Competitiveness. The dedication and leadership you have shown in advancing strategic insights have truly made this event globally relevant. The IPS National Competitiveness Conference has become an invaluable tool for governments, for businesses, and international organizations. The research presented in this event provides not only a comprehensive ranking of nations, but also fresh perspectives on how countries can enhance their global competitiveness. It offers critical insights into the factors driving national success and has guided countries in shaping effective policies for growth, innovation, and sustainability. I'm truly excited to share some reflections as we consider how to further leverage this important work to foster national and global sustainable development. We gather at a critical juncture. The world is confronting unprecedented challenges, and as we assess progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, it is clear that we are severely off track. Only 15% of the targets are on track for 2030, a stark reminder that transformation is urgently needed. The Summit of the Future held in September stressed this imperative to bring the SDGs back on track. We must embrace bold strategies. Youth must be the forefront of this transformation. Their voices, energy, and ideas will drive the innovations we need to accelerate SDG achievement. We must ensure women, youth, and vulnerable groups, including persons with disabilities, are actively included in decision-making processes. By building an inclusive society, we empower the very groups that will lead us to the solutions needed to meet global commitments. Equally, the business sector plays a pivotal role. Innovation, sustainable growth, and responsible leadership are essential for accelerating the SDGs. Partnerships across government, business, and civil society are the key to unlocking transformative solutions. Partnerships across government, business, and civil society are the key to unlocking transformative solutions. 600 million people still live in extreme poverty, and global hunger affects 9.2% of the population. Our collective efforts must address these urgent needs. As we reflect on the road ahead, it has become evident that the obstacles before us are substantial and complex, but I am confident that through collaboration, determination, and a shared commitment to leaving no one behind, we can overcome these obstacles. In closing, let us remember that progress does not come from isolated actions, but from the power of collective efforts. Together, we have the tools, knowledge, and the partnerships necessary to make meaningful change. The road to 2030 will not be easy, but it is filled with potential. Every step we take towards sustainability, inclusivity, and innovation brings us closer to a world where the SDGs are not just a vision, but a reality. Let us continue to work together, follow the joint efforts of Unitarian Assist to inspire hope and create the momentum we need for a more prosperous, a more equitable, and a more sustainable world for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful words. Particularly, your focus on SDG is very impressive one. We try to do that. Okay, thank you very much. Our second speaker is Dr. Xiang Bing, founding dean and professor at Chung Kung Graduate School of Business. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Professor Chiu and Moon, and also 7 institutions and also their team for producing such a meaningful, impactful report. And today, we're in the era of multiple and concurrent disruptions, not only in technologies, but also in economic development models, social contract, geopolitics, reconfiguration, global trade investment system, and also the climate change and sustainability challenge. So there's maybe a need for new enlightenment. Of course, a new way to look at national competitiveness. So I would like to congratulate the whole team for this important innovation experiment in assessing national competitiveness. I think this is very timely, very meaningful. Not only is a good benchmarking tool for many, many nations, but also, is a great way we can learn from each other. And hopefully we can have a lot of nations that have an economic growth, which is inclusive and sustainable as well. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much for your global insights and broad idea in terms of everything. The next speaker is Mr. Thomas McDevitt, chair of the Washington Times. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Tae-Hyun Kim. It is such an honor to be here today and to share a few minutes. I feel so grateful to be on the congratulatory remarks team. I really appreciated Dr. Nikhil Seth's comments from UNITAR and my colleague, Dr. Bing Jiang from the Chung Kong Graduate School of Business. Look forward to hearing from Ms. Mihoko Kumato from UNITAR. I remember you from last year. And also my good friend, Dr. Dong Sung Cho, the chair of Institute of Industrial Policy Studies and very affiliated with Assist University, along with Professor DeLung Huang of IPSNC, and my good friend and colleague, Dr. Hui Chang Moon, president of Assist University. I am so impressed with the consistent development of this whole initiative. Like the previous speaker, Professor and Dean Zhang mentioned, I fully agree that this effort to highlight the competitiveness factors that will allow countries, companies, universities, and people to grow is so important in this complex time we're in. In particular, the issues we face in the world geopolitically, economically, socially, culturally. In my studies of strategic leadership and management, I couldn't agree more than having that double diamond model examining the external factors and the human factors that cause a nation to rise or decline. It's so valuable. And I'm even thinking, my goodness, how effective that can be to help guide MBA programs and other high training programs, all the way down even to the elementary school level of what we need to be paying attention to in terms of education of young people. I also appreciate the separating the competitiveness and the brand evaluations. I think that's so wise. And, you know, it was just 1 year and a couple days ago in the Washington Times, Dr. Cho invited me to share a few words last year. I think the conference was anchored in Geneva, and we carried a front page story about the importance of examining the brand value of a country's name and its competitiveness in light of the world situation. So I think really shifting the mindset of media and of business and of government and NGOs to see what are the competencies, the human capacities that will make the world a better place, and have that as a constructive alternative to the unfortunate suffering and power politics that seem to be going on. I think you're on such a great track. And again, I'm part of this. I really look forward to seeing the study this year and have learned so much from you and hope to be involved in making it forward. Thank you very much again. And congratulations also to the entire audience who's tuning in, especially those from Assist and all those from overseas. Appreciate it. God bless and be well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair McDavid. First of all, thank you very much for your broad and inspiring remarks, particularly positive national competitiveness factors. Those kind of things will be very important. You suggested very good ideas. Thank you very much. Now, let's move on to the presentations from 4 distinguished experts on global national competitiveness. Our first speaker is Ms. Miyoko Kumamoto, Director of UNITAR. She will present the role of UNITAR in enhancing the national competitiveness of developing countries. Please join me in welcoming Director Kumamoto.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction. And once again, it's a great pleasure to come back to this important forum. I am extremely excited. Thank you so much. distinguished colleagues, and esteemed partners. Firstly, I would like to express my deepest appreciation to the organizers and all the partners to this global conference on IPS National Competitiveness Research. Chairman Dong Son Cho, the Institute for Industrial Policy Studies, Switzerland, President Hugh Chang Moon from Access University, Chairman Tae Hyun Kim, the Institute for Policy and Strategy on National Competitiveness, founding Dean and Professor Bing Shan at Chung Kong Graduate School of Business, Chairman Thomas McDevitt of the Washington Times, Professor Dilong Huang at the Institute for Policy and Strategy on National Competitiveness, and researcher Shuyen Huang at Institute for Policy and Strategy on National Competitiveness. Once again, thank you so much for welcoming UNITA and myself to this important forum. And warm greetings from Geneva, Switzerland. As we gather here today for the IPS National Competitiveness Conference 2024, I would like to reflect on the role of UNITA in enhancing national competitiveness. For many years, the collaboration between UNITA and Access University has advanced both global understanding and practical strategies for competitiveness and sustainable development. And this relationship represents not only a shared vision, but also a collective commitment to fostering inclusive growth, innovative policies, and global leadership. We are also collaborating closely for the SDG Management School, and it has been a true pleasure and honor. The latest findings from the Global Conference on IPS National Competitiveness Research provide us with critical insights into how nations can enhance their global standing. In an increasingly interconnected and complex world, as Mr. Thomas McDevitt and Dr. Shang Bin mentioned already, national competitiveness is no longer defined purely by economic strength. And today, the most competitive countries are those that have successfully integrated sustainability, innovation, and inclusive growth into their strategies. As the report reveals, countries like Canada, which excels in cost efficiency, and for example, Switzerland, where I am based, they are leaders in differentiation through innovation and demonstrates how diverse strategies can yield high national competitiveness. These examples show the importance of a nuanced approach where both economic efficiency and the innovative capacity play essential roles. What unites all these nations, however, is their ability to harness their human capital, whether through skilled professionals, effective policymakers, or innovative entrepreneurs. At UNITA, where I am currently based, we view this competitiveness not only in isolation, but through the broader lens of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The integration of sustainability, inclusiveness, and equitable growth is central to the SDG agenda. As Nikhil, Executive Director of UNITA mentioned in the opening remarks, only 15% of the SDGs targets are currently on track. Therefore, there is urgent need to rethink how countries position themselves to not only achieve these goals, but also maintain their competitive edge in a rapidly changing global landscape. One of the critical aspects of both national competitiveness and sustainable development is the inclusion of youth and women. The inclusion of these groups not only strengthens economic resilience, but also fosters innovation and adaptability. Countries that actively invest in youth education and empower women, female leaders, are better equipped to navigate the challenges of the 21st century. Their contributions, whether in technology, governance, or entrepreneurship, are indispensable for sustainable development. This is at the heart of UNITA's initiatives. We train individuals from around the world with a special emphasis on vulnerable groups, including women, youth, and people with disabilities. In 2023, UNITA trained over 500,000 individuals from 193 UN member states, with 74% of these participants engaging in learning programs with clear outcomes in the SDGs dimensions of poverty, planet, people, and peace. A significant portion of our beneficiaries are women and youth, whom we empower through targeted programs in leadership, innovation, and digital skills. These groups are not just participants in our programs, they are change makers who will shape the future of their countries and, by extension, the global economy, the world prosperity. Our work at UNITA also contributes directly to enhancing national competitiveness, particularly through capacity building and policy guidance. The IPS National Competitiveness Research underlines the importance of well-trained policymakers, entrepreneurs, and professionals. These are the people who can translate strategy into concrete action, ensuring their countries can adapt to new challenges and leverage global opportunities. For instance, UNITA's efforts in digital skills training are a direct response to the findings that entrepreneurial capability is a key driver of national competitiveness. In Africa alone, we have trained over 7,000 women and youth in digital skills in partnership with leading technology companies. These programs are vital for enhancing innovation and driving economic growth in developing regions. Additionally, through our online training program, we trained close to 200,000 individuals in 2023 alone. This program focuses on building capacities in climate change and sustainable development, helping countries transition towards greener economies. These programs, aligned with the findings of the IPS report, are designed to foster long-term competitiveness by building resilient and adaptable human capital. A core element of both national competitiveness and sustainable development is partnership. No country can thrive in isolation. The most successful nations are those that engage in cross-sectoral collaboration, leveraging strengths of government, the private sector, academia, and civil society to drive innovation and progress. Innovation, sustainable practices, and responsible corporate leadership are key drivers of progress. At UNITA, partnerships are at the heart of what we do. In 2023, 89% of our beneficiaries were trained through events implemented in collaboration with diverse partners, from UN agencies to universities and non-governmental organizations, including the private sector. These partnerships are crucial for delivering the high-quality, impactful training that fosters global competitiveness. They also help bridge the gap between the SDGs and national economic policies, ensuring that the drive for sustainability is aligned with each country's competitiveness strategy. As we look forward, it is clear that the journey towards achieving the SDGs and enhancing global competitiveness is deeply interconnected. Nations that invest in their human capital, prioritize sustainability, and foster inclusivity will emerge as the global leaders of tomorrow. The findings of the IPS National Competitiveness Research are a call to action, reminding us that the path to competitiveness is not just about economic indicators. It is about people, policies, partnerships. Together, through partnerships like the one between UNITA and Assist University and other partners, and through our shared commitment to the 2030 Agenda, we can empower countries, uplift communities, and ensure we leave no one behind. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to make these remarks. Thank you. Over to you. Thank you.
The SDG, again, I knew 4 or 5 years ago, I knew SDG, but you explained very much about that. After listening to your, speaking, I thought our competitiveness looks like very similar to SDG goals. Okay, so in that sense, if we connect together, make more collaboration, it will be good for both of us. Thank you very much. Now, our second speaker is Dr. Dong-Seung Cho, Chair of the Institute for Industrial Policy Studies. Please give a warm welcome to Chair Dong-Seung Cho.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Dong-Seung Cho at IPS. I will be presenting along with 2 colleagues of mine. The second person will be Dilong Hwang, who is the director of IPSNC, and the third speaker will be Hui-Chang Moon, president of Assist University. We'll split our responsibility as follows. The models that I will be presenting, and then statistical rankings by Professor Dilong Hwang, and strategic implications by President Hui-Chang Moon. Now, models. Well, there are 3 reports ever presented to the world by 3 institutions: IMD, the Swiss Business School, World Economic Forum, the organization that sponsors Davos Forum, and IPS. And these 3 institutions have similar reports, although there are some differences. For example, IMD, that started its publication of the research in 1989 for 64 countries with 255 criteria. And they sort of split hard data and soft data by 64 and 36. And then the second report by WF was started in 1996 for 141 countries, quite a lot, with 103 criteria, and hard data and software about half and half. However, this publication stopped with the corona, and from 2021, it does not publish this report. And the third one is IPS. It was started in 2000 with 62 countries in the statistics, and we have 8 factors which are further split into 98 criteria. And hard data and software, soft data, 58 and 42. And there are some differences among these 5 reports. I sort of compare these 3 reports in 5 respects. The first one is variables. Well, IMD report has 4 major categories, and most of them are physical in nature. World Economic Forum has 4 categories, 3 categories in physical, 1 human. And then IPS, 4 physical factors and 4 human factors. I will describe this a little later. And then the second one is for whom? Who are the principal audience? Well, IMD, it is for corporations, either domestic or global, which want to do business in particular nations. So the customers would be the corporations which want to invest in particular countries. WEF has a different perspective. It tries to measure productivity, and the nation with this report may be able to increase the productivity. The third, IPS report has a different perspective. It is for policymakers in each country which wants to enhance its national competitiveness. So the strategic agenda are the main focus of IPS. And then the third factor is scope. In other words, whether it is only looking at the country inside the country, or neighboring countries. IPS is the only report which looks at the relationship between the country in question and the neighboring countries, which have some relatedness and some cooperations with the particular country. And then the fourth one is country grouping. In other words, there are big countries and small countries do not compete, and developed countries and developing countries do not compete. So IPS has a 3x3 grouping. So one matrix is by the size of the country in terms of the land and population, and the other X would be the level of economic growth. So there will be 9 categories or 9 groups of countries within which they compete against each other. The last one is strategic implication. Well, IPS tries to differentiate or has 2 perspectives on the strategy. There are countries which want to compete on the competitiveness of their cost, while some other countries, more developed countries, they may try to compete with the quality, design, and others, which are more or less differentiated nature. Now, let me report each of these 5 factors. The first one is variables. Well, IPS, as I said, includes 4 physical factors and 4 human factors. How it was developed, let me show you the kind of process by which these 8 factors were identified. As you know, until 1980s, there was no no country in the world which was interested in national competitiveness. And in those days, until the 1970s, productivity was the only one that was similar to what we are talking about in the name of competitiveness. And at the time, there was an economic model called Kappa-Douglas function, which is productivity is a function of capital and labor. So at the time, if we can use the word national competitiveness, the only variable which affected this productivity or national competitiveness would be endowed resources such as capital and labor. And then in the 1980s, countries started to compete. And the United States at the time was in a disadvantageous position against Europe and especially Japan. So Ronald Reagan, then president, asked Michael Porter to develop a new model that would help United States to enhance its competitiveness. So what he did was to find 3 more variables which would determine the level of competitiveness of the United States. And in addition to endowed resources, which was the functioning Cobb-Douglas model, he identified 3 more: business context, related and supporting industries, and domestic market. With these 3, 1 plus 3, he developed a model which was later called Diamond. However, I had some problem with this model when I tried to apply this to countries like Korea and the developing countries, because developed countries have all of these in their economy. Therefore, all they needed to do is to measure the level of what they possess in each of these 4 functions, factors. However, many developing countries do not have some of these factors at all. So there's nothing to measure. So for developing countries, their mission is not to measure, but to create some of these factors which they do not have. So what I had to do was to find people who would create these 4 factors. So naturally, I had to add people: workers, policymakers and administrators in the government, entrepreneurs, and professionals, professional managers, designers, engineers, and so on. So although the national competitiveness of a country in a certain point in time would be determined by the 4 factors within the diamond, dynamically, it is the people who will create and change and increase the size of these 4 physical factors. And then I added 1 more factor, where there is chance event. So I called it 9-factor model. So these are the chance is difficult to measure for each of these countries. So in our model, we have 8 factors, 4 physical and 4 human factors to measure the level of competitiveness of nations. Now the second one is objectives. And as I said, IPS model is for the policymakers of each country to design and develop their national strategy to enhance national competitiveness. However, policies and strategies should be different depending on the level of economic growth of each of these countries. So I separated the growth of the countries along economic development into 4: less developed, developing, semi-developed, and developed countries. And then the economy may grow along this axis, but the very factor which would determine the level of competitiveness or the change would be somewhat different. For example, in the less developed stage, all they have is endowed resources and workers, mostly unskilled workers, and they lack policy. So it is the government, policymakers and administrators that can break this policy problem. And then with proper policy, business context, the environment for business will be growing. And then, however, with this business context, there are many business people who may seek opportunities given by the government, yet there is a lack of entrepreneurship. So the next leader should be entrepreneurs who would take baton from policymakers and administrators to lead the economy. And then gradually the country may move from developing stage to semi-developed stage. And they slowly develop related and supporting industries. However, in this stage, they still lack managerial and technological innovation. So the professional managers, engineers, designers should come to the front, and they should be leading the economy to a developed stage. And then demand conditions may follow. So although 8 factors are all important, the relative importance of each of these factors may depend on the level of economic growth of each of these countries. So this is the model that we have included in our design of the model. The third one is scope, double diamond. There are countries which are heavily dependent on the neighboring countries. Take Canada, take Mexico. They will be heavily determined. The economic growth and competitiveness would be determined by the USA. And the neighboring countries to China may also have similar situation. And the ASEAN countries, they sort of move the economies as a team. So for those countries which are heavily dependent on the neighboring countries, internationalization or globalization is very important. So for that, we have added another axis, that is international context. So although a country can be, a country's competitiveness can be measured by these 8 factors within, statically, but dynamically when they work together with the neighboring countries, we should add these 8 factors that are possessed by the neighboring countries. And the interactions of each of these factors between the country and the neighboring countries will affect the level of national competitiveness. So this is what we call double diamond. The fourth one is grouping. Here it shows along the y-axis the level of competitiveness being from weaker countries to intermediate to strong countries, and then along the x-axis, small countries in population and land, and to medium and large. And we have 9 corners. In each of these corners, there are about 8 to 10 countries, and our hypothesis is that these 8 or 10 countries would compete among themselves rather than competing with the countries in different boxes. Finally, strategy. I guess that is most important because our design is for policymakers to develop their national strategy. We already showed you that in terms of physical factors, the relative importance moves from factor conditions to business context, related and supporting industries and demand conditions, and human factors from workers to policymakers and administrators and entrepreneurs and professionals. And for cost strategy, they are more dependent on factor conditions and workers than the factors which determine the sophistication of the economy. So for cost strategy, we give higher weight on factor conditions and workers, and so on. And then for differentiation strategy, we give higher weight to demand conditions and professionals. Specifically, this is the model. CS is cost strategy, DS is differentiation strategy. For cost strategy, we give higher weight, like 32 out of 120, about 27%, to factor conditions and worker conditions, and less weight on other factors. For differentiation, we give higher weight on demand conditions and professionals, and so on. So this is the way to separate the strategy between cost and differentiation when the policymakers design the national strategy. What we ask, or what we suggest is the countries should think what their national strategy would be between cost and differentiation, or combination of this, and depending on their choice of strategy, the relative importance they should put on sort of creating these factors would vary. So I finished this model explanation with this, and I give my podium to my colleague, Professor Hwang Dae-long. He will talk on the rankings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Dong-seung Jo. You presented very well about IPS risk model. It looks like very comprehensive, covering human factors also. So, as other persons mentioned, I think IPS model is very comprehensive, very profitable to everyone. Our third speaker is Dr. Dae-long Hwang, Professor of Assist University and Research Director at IPSNC. He will present IPS National Competitiveness Research 2024 about result of rankings. Let's welcome Professor Hwang.
Okay, so thank you, Chair Kim, for the introduction, and thank you, Chair Cho, for your presentation on the importance and the significance of the models. And it is my great honor to be standing here in front of you to present the 2024 IPS National Competitiveness Rankings. So without further ado, let's take a look at the overview part of our rankings. So as Chair Cho has mentioned, altogether, our total global rankings has 10 categories. 2 for overall rankings in terms of different strategies, including the cost strategy and the differentiation strategy. And the rest are the 8 rankings for specific factor rankings. And on the other hand, our samples, we have altogether 62 countries and the regions, including all major countries and regions around the globe. But due to time limitation, today we're going to focus on 2 specific categories. The first one is top performers, the top 10 countries and the regions in each ranking. And the other category are 6 key countries, which are our special focus for particular reasons. The number 1 set is the United States and China, which are the 2 major global powers these days. And the second set is the Republic of Korea, which is probably the only one successful example transitioning itself from developing to developed status. The last set are Israel, Ukraine, and Russia, because all of them are still at ongoing conflicts, such as Israel-Hamas war and the Ukraine-Russian war has entered the 3rd year. So with all these focus countries, we highlighted the developing countries in red color. For more information, please visit our official website, IPSNC.org. So the rankings. First set of rankings are 2 overall rankings, both CS, aka the cost strategy, DS, aka differentiation strategy. To begin with, because we have different strategy approach, namely the cost strategy and the differentiation strategy, with different strategies, the same country may have different status or positions due to the different options, such as Canada. If it chooses cost strategy, it can rank number 1 in our rankings. However, on the other hand, contrarily, it can drop to number 6 if it selects differentiation strategy. Similarly, UAE, Singapore is another case, showed another pattern. It can go up in the rankings if it chooses differentiation strategy rather than cost strategy. China still, because it's still a developing country, which should focus more on cost strategy rather than differentiation strategy, because it will go down in the rankings. Switzerland is an opposite of China because it is a developed economy. It can go up by more than 10 rankings if it choose a differentiation strategy. So the conclusion here is strategy matters, and the strategy can make a difference. So cost and differentiation strategy rankings of the 2024 are as follows. First things first, for the cost strategy rankings, here we highlighted the top 10 countries and the regions, which are Canada, ranking number 1, UAE, following Canada, ranking number 2, and such to China, ranking number 9, and Finland, ranking number 10. Here on the top 10 regions and countries, the red colors are developing countries, and as I mentioned before, the highlighted countries and the regions in green bar are the 6 key countries which are United States, China, Korea, ranking number 18, Israel, ranking number 21. On the other hand, Russia and Ukraine, they are both at war with each other. They show the lower ranking than the previous countries and regions. On the other hand, the second overall rankings belongs to differentiation strategy rankings. The top 10 countries and regions are Switzerland, Denmark, Singapore, United States, Sweden, Canada, Netherlands, UAE, Finland, and Hong Kong SAR, Special Administrative Region of China. Also, the green color highlighted countries, Israel, ranking number 17, and the Republic of Korea, ranking right after Israel, number 18. And China, 22, and Ukraine and Russia both show the relatively very low rankings in terms of differentiation. Here, we can show some patterns in comparing these two strategy rankings. For example, the green bar, if you look at the green bar, 6 key countries, half of them in red colors, like China, Russia, and Ukraine, are developing countries. On the other hand, United States, Korea, Republic of Korea, Israel are developed countries. So all the developed countries in these 6 samples, they showed upward, rising direction if they choose not cost strategy, but differentiation strategy. On the other hand, oppositely, the developing countries, the highlighted China, Russia, and Ukraine, they all show downward. They go down in the rankings if they choose jump from cost strategy to differentiation strategy. So the rest of the rankings, the 8-factor rankings, including both 4 physical factors and 4 human factors. So here again, we highlighted the top 10 countries and regions, and also marked the 6 key countries in the list. So first one is the first factor of the physical factors, namely the factor conditions combined with natural resources and the processed resources. So here the top 10 countries include Australia, Kuwait, Canada, UAE, New Zealand, Russia, Finland, Oman, Sweden, Saudi Arabia, which are all famously for their abundant resources. However, the other big countries like United States and China ranked relatively low in these rankings because we calculated the per capita resources, not the overall total size of the resources. The number 2 factor is the business context. So in this factor, we combine structure and rivalry together. So as you can see, the highlights, Hong Kong SAR ranked number 1. And in the number 1 list, top 10 list, only one developing country is listed here, which is UAE. All the other 9 out of top 10 are developed countries and regions. And the 6 highlighted countries all fall out of the top 10 in this category. So the number 3 category is the related industries, which we calculated the industrial infrastructure and living infrastructure, which combined together support the national competitiveness. So here, Korea ranked the last one in the top 10 list, and followed by other major global powers like the United States ranking number 12, China ranking number 34. Ukraine and Russia again showed relatively weak competitiveness in this category. So the next one, demand conditions, which is the last factor of physical factors. So here, as we all know that both the United States and China are the 2 major global powers and has huge market size and sophisticated markets. So in this regard, we calculated the demand conditions combined with the market size and also the market quality. So US and China ranking both number 1 and number 2, followed by Switzerland, Germany, Finland, Denmark, Canada, United Kingdom, Singapore, and Japan. So other 4 highlighted key countries, including Korea ranking number 16, Israel, which is still at war with Hamas, ranking number 22. And again, Ukraine and Russia relatively showed less competitiveness in this specific category. However, Ukraine showed slightly stronger competitiveness than its rivalry, Russia. So the second part of the 8-factor rankings is the human factor, which the workers come first. Here, the workers, we not only strengthen the quantity of the workers, but also we pay attention to the quality of the workers. So without any doubt, China still ranks number 1 for many years in this category. And here, one interesting phenomenon is that, as you can see, only in this category, the workers of the human factors, mostly the majority of top 10 countries and regions are developing countries. They are China, Colombia, India, Philippines ranking number 5, Kuwait ranking number 6, and the last 3 on the bottom of top 10 countries are Sri Lanka, Argentina, and so on. However, developed countries, we highlighted Korea and the United States ranking in the upper middle part. Still, Ukraine and Russia showed weakness in this category. So the next one, we still have 3 more to go, so please bear with me. The second factor of human factors are policymakers and administrators. So here, the number 10 rankings belongs to Switzerland, ranking number 1, the champion. Singapore, which is very famous for its hard working of the policymakers and the administrators, definitely ranked high in this category, which is number 2 all over the world. Denmark ranking number 3, Sweden, Canada, Netherlands, Finland, UAE, Austria, New Zealand are the rest of the top 10 list. So in terms of entrepreneurs, here we focus on not only the social context, but also the personal competence of the entrepreneurs of different countries among our altogether 62 samples. The number 10 countries are Denmark, United States, which is very famous for its entrepreneurship spirit all over the world. So US ranked number 2 in this category, followed by Netherlands, Canada, UAE, Singapore again, Switzerland, Sweden, United Kingdom, and Australia. So as we can see in this specific category, developed countries did a relatively good job. However, developing countries, in terms of entrepreneurs, should pay more attention and to enhance the competitiveness of entrepreneurs in order to make the overall competitiveness stronger. Last but not least, the final sub-factor of both human factors and the aid factors is professionals. So here, similar to the previous entrepreneurs, we focus on not only the social context, but also the personal competence of professionals from different countries from all over the world. So here, Singapore, as a city-state model, topped number 1 here, followed by Switzerland. Very strong country in the Europe, Netherlands, also another European country. UAE, the only developing country from Middle East. Again, number 5, Denmark from Europe, Sweden from Europe, and all the other top 10 countries are developed countries like United States, Canada, Israel, United Kingdoms. Here, South Korea, the Republic of Korea, showed strong competitiveness in this regard, ranked number 15 out of the 62 samples. The other 3 developing countries in our key samples, including China, Ukraine, and Russia, did not make the first half. They all fall into the second half of these rankings in terms of professionals. So here I finished my rankings, but more importantly, the implications and analysis of the rankings which we should all pay more attention to. So let's welcome President Hee-Chang Moon, another great scholar. So please come here.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Wang. You showed so many useful, data and rankings. So either give some kind of insight to government officials to plan their policies and business leaders, something like that. Thanks again. I already thank you for your dedicated research on national competitiveness research. Thank you. Our final presenter is President Hee-Chang Moon of Asus University. He's going to present analysis and insights on the 2024 National Competitiveness Research. Please join me in welcoming President Moon.
Thank you very much. So we have 3 topics. Number 1 is models, followed by rankings, and my part is to talk about implications. So I'm going to wrap up the most important parts of the previous presentations and also some other more in-depth analysis. Well, there are a lot to talk, but I'm going to focus on something which is different from other studies and other academic works and other practical reports. Well, as we have already noticed, the number 1 is, our approach is pretty much different from traditional approach. The traditional approach, whether it is academia or not, they usually emphasize the amount of resources that they possess to gain competitiveness. This is to say, in order to be more competitive, you have to have more resources than your competitors. But our approach is different. Even if you have same amount of resources, you can win by choosing proper strategy. So strategy is not just to build up new resources, but strategy is to find proper way of winning even with the same amount of resources. This is what we call the real strategy. So implications, as you have seen, even if they have like a same number of resources, depending on cost strategy and differentiation strategy, the results or the rankings are different. Well, let me just go one more kind of step in more in-depth analysis. I will do intragroup analysis and simulations and some TP metrics. So we show like strategic goals of economic development, and I'm going to come back to wrap it up some to get to a conclusion. Intragroup. Well, as Professor Cho already briefly mentioned, no, it is not fair to compare, for example, like Austria in Europe, no, with Australia. Austria is competing with Belgium, not Australia or Canada. So we have to have like a similar groups for competition. So we have categorized on the vertical axis, the strong, intermediate, and weak. On the horizontal axis, the size of the nation, small, medium, and large. But even in this case, depending on your choice of a strategy, whether it is cost strategy or differentiation strategy, your rankings will be changed. So for example, like Kuwait is going to go down to intermediate group from the top strong group. And Belgium is going up to strong group when it pursues differentiation strategy instead of cost strategy. We can find many of these examples in all these nine categories. So New Zealand goes down, and then Germany may go up, and China goes down, and then Japan may go up. So this is interesting, strong and intermediate. But like at the bottom, the weak group, this is a little different. In the weak group, most of the nations, Jordan to Jordan, and Guatemala to Guatemala, and Russia to Russia, they are changing within the group whether they choose cost strategy or differentiation strategy. This is to say, it's kind of too much stagnated. So for the very much underdeveloped economy, like weak economies like this, they need like a radical change to get onto the world. So strategy really matters. And I think probably some organizations like UNITAR may focus more on kind of weak category of economies. We can probably help with each other. So the two things, strategy matters, but for some group, sometimes strategy doesn't matter. We need like a more radical change. So again, this kind of research has not been done in other existing studies. And number two is, I'd like to talk a little bit about the kind of current tension between US and China. In the media and many other academic works, they say that there is a trade war or trade dispute between these two economies. But when you look at like trade transactions and some other like GDP or the level of technology, you may get to that conclusion. But if you have more in-depth analysis using our model, 8 factors and 16 sub-factors and 98 variables, there are many areas they have different competitive advantages so that they can help with each other rather than just competing all the time. So these are some of the examples. The ranks of the US and China are different. Well, let me save time, so I will give you some simulation result. So this is to say, this is the US rankings, the changing patterns of the US rankings for the last 10 to 15 years. So we have some data of US, like when US pursued CS ranking, cost strategy ranking, and in 2010, the ranking moves up and down depending on its competitive strategies. Anyway, in 2010, US cost strategy ranking is between 11 and 16. But its differentiation ranking on your right-hand side, it goes from 10 to 2. This is to say USA should be better off with differentiation strategy rather than cost strategy. This is the year 2010, and then 5 years later, it changed a little bit, and then it goes back again, and very recently, it goes up. Year 2024, USA cost ranking and also differential ranking are pretty much high. So this is one of the examples or characteristics that like a super gigantic economy should pursue maybe both. They may be balanced in their strategic implementation. And let me take another example of China case. This is China's ranking, similar time period from year 2010 to year 2024, where when they started like at year 2010, the cost ranking was higher from 12 to 17, higher than those of like a differentiation ranking. which ranges from 15 to 20. So this is say at the time, China was more competitive when they pursue cost strategy rather than differentiation strategy. It moves around like that one, but the most recently, it goes up. Like China is pretty competitive in terms of like a cost strategy and also very much competitive in differentiation. So this is pretty much similar to the case of USA, and China is also pushing not just cost strategy, also differentiation strategy. And this is why kind of immediate implication out of this case study is, both USA and China are pursuing both cost strategy and differentiation strategy. There are many areas that these two economies are competing. So there's a tension between China and USA in many areas because they are competing in many areas, not just differentiation strategy, but also like a cost leadership strategy. Well, there are more stories about this one, but the book is going to be published pretty soon, but let me just show you some kind of key implications which are not found in other studies. So this is kind of interesting. And one more is term priority matrix. Well, what this is say, we kind of hypothesized in the beginning of our kind of presentation from Professor Cho's presentation. So our strategy is to choose one of these two options, for example, like cost and differentiation. And depending on our weight, okay, which weight should be given like a cost and differentiation, the results may be different. But we have to employ another dimension that is like the time sequence. You may have like a short-term strategy, or medium-term, and long-term, and very long-term. So on the vertical axis, this is the priority or relative importance of your policy goals, such as whether you are pursuing growth, then maybe GDP per capita, or some countries may pursuing like the welfare or distribution. Depending on your weight, you can like illustrate that on the vertical axis. But on the horizontal axis, we can have like time consequences. So priority high, medium, and low, and term, short, medium, and long, and very long term. So using this framework and using our 98 criteria for competitiveness variables, we categorized the list of the strategic options for USA, and these are like USA strategic options. And these are like, this is like, we say the variables that are more related to private sectors are located under the longer term, and public sectors are more shorter term, because government can fix their problem shorter than like the private problems. And then the higher the level of priority, it's going to be higher. So we kind of assume that like the upper left corner, like at the upper side of this the rectangle, this triangle, the upper side of the triangle may be preferred for the policymakers to pursue their strategies first. So this is the US case, and next one is the China case. And then we compared, and the allocations of their policies, the elements are quite different. This is to say there's a room for cooperation between these two economies, rather than just competing. Because if the competitive factors are very similarly positioned, then they are more competitors than collaborators. But their competitive advantages of the 98 elements are pretty much like different. So this is to say there's a room for cooperation rather than just competition. So kind of like a quick conclusions are this. Number one is, despite their differences and conflicts between USA and China over sensitive issues such as political systems, culture, and ideology, there's a room for cooperation. I'm not saying they should not compete, but there's a room for cooperation. And also the world economy is kind of like very much related to the relationship between China and USA. So the other countries, there are kind of some implications for other economies because of the relationship between China and USA. So basically, the countries are gaining competitive advantages, not just from competition, but also cooperation. And also we can introduce like a global value chain. Their global value chain may be enhanced and to some extent, like global welfare may be maximized. So even if we are talking about economics and business, there's a way for collaboration to help enhance national competitiveness as well as global welfare if we optimally distribute our resources by each nations and collaborate with each other. This sounds like a little romantic, but this is not unrealistic. So this kind of in-depth analysis may give us very important implications for developed countries and developing countries and global economy and so on. Okay, conclusion. The conclusion is again, well, there are many important implications, but I'd like to highlight again some unique, differentiated characteristics of our research compared to other studies. Number one is, as Professor Cho introduced, the model is different. The diamond model by Michael Porter was excellent, but even if he didn't mention this time, but Professor Cho was kind of working with Michael Porter in developing the diamond model, and then he raised the question that this is excellent, but it doesn't work to some countries like South Korea. So he added human factors to the physical factors of the original Michael Porter's diamond model. And on the other hand, actually myself and some other scholars, we extended diamond model to include international element. So we are not just refuting diamond, but we extended the diamond model into two directions. One is extended source, and the other is extended scope. So this is to say, our model, we think, is more kind of extended, but which has in kind of tradition of academia. And number two is this is a strategic implication. This is actually the highlight of our research, the weight and sequence. And once again, even if you have same amount of resources, depending on your choice of strategy, you can be better off or worse off. But this is weight and sequence, and we have shown two cases. Number one is strategic weight and sequence. Number two is economic goal weight and sequence. So in the beginning, we introduced cost and differentiation strategy, and also the life cycle type of 4 development sequences: underdeveloped, developing, semi-developed, and developed economy. So cost and differentiation is weight, and then the 4 different sequences is a kind of sequence. So this is a part of weight sequence examples. And number 2 is, as I introduced, TP matrix on the vertical axis, depending on your development goals, whether you're pushing economic growth or you're pushing or distribution, welfare, ESG, and your priority may be different. But still, we have 4 time sequences: short-term, medium-term, long-term, and very long-term. So if you use weight and sequence scheme, you can have a better or more kind of achievable result. And number 3 is competitiveness. Again, as we have seen from the case of US and China, no, the world economy is not just for competition, it's cooperation. The vocabulary of competitive sounds like a competition, but actually it's more sometimes cooperation. So if we introduce global value chain concept, you can have a better understanding, sometimes competition and sometimes cooperation. And finally, and this is the last but not the least, audience. So who is our target audience? Well, number one is, actually we have developed this model for academic purpose, to write books and to write academic papers. But eventually, the implications are more useful for the policymakers, because we are talking about policies from national competitiveness research. And then we went one step further. This is going to be good, very much useful for business people, because business people have to decide where to invest, which is the best place for their investment. So this research is not just for academicians and also practitioners, including policymakers and business people. So if you're just pushing politically, like a reshoring or friendshoring, well, that is not that bad. But after we analyze in-depth things like this, Then we can have like a better choice for policymakers and also business people. Well, we are very sorry because of the time limitation. We cannot say whatever we want to say, but these are the key points, and I highlighted just the differentiated features from other studies, and then some other information is on our website, and I will also upload this presentation slides to our website pretty soon, and then more details will be available when the book is published, which is going to be published in about like a couple of weeks. So please, for more information, please visit IPSNC website at www.ipsnc.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Hui Chang-moon. Your presentation is very precious. Anyhow, thank you for your in-depth analysis and insights on the national competitiveness research. You show so many interesting things, so either helpful to everybody, and also 3 persons from congratulatory remarks and 4 presentations on IPS national competitiveness research, I think provided so many opportunities to examine each country's competitiveness positions, okay? If they consider very much, analyze that, they can improve their competitiveness, I'm sure that. Okay, we scheduled this conference 60 minutes at first time, but when I look at the clock, it passed about 80 minutes, okay, more than 20 minutes. So I think as we come to the end of conference, finally, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all the speakers, in-person attendees, and everyone who participated via Zoom webinar. So I hope to see you all again next year. Good luck and goodbye. Thank you.